In the middle of a torrential downpour, the glass doors of the Prestige Motors showroom shimmered like a cruel mirage. Amara stood outside, her thin, threadbare coat soaked through to the bone, her dark skin trembling from the biting wind. Inside, surrounded by gleaming Italian leather and polished chrome, stood Marcus, a man who measured human worth by the zeros in a bank account. He looked at the shivering woman through the window with nothing but disgust, as if she were a stain on his perfect floor. When he finally stepped out, it wasn't to offer help, but to shove her away from the entrance. "Get moving. You're scaring away the real customers," he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. But as Amara stumbled back, catching herself against a cold metal pillar, the street lamp caught something on her hand. A heavy, ornate gold ring with a crest so ancient and a diamond so rare, it could buy the very building they stood in. Marcus froze, his breath hitching in his throat as he realized the woman he just treated like trash carried the wealth of a kingdom on her finger. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story of hidden royalty and ultimate justice, I want to take a moment to welcome you all. Who are you, and where are you joining us from today? Let us know in the comments which city or country you are watching from. And if you love stories about unexpected turns of fate, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button right now to help us bring you more amazing content. The rain continued to fall in heavy sheets, blurring the world into shades of gray and neon. Amara didn't flinch when Marcus's hand made contact with her shoulder. She simply shifted her weight, maintaining a dignity that no amount of poverty could erase. She had walked miles in these worn-out boots, hiding in the shadows of a city that had forgotten the meaning of mercy. Her hair was matted with water, and her face was pale from hunger, yet her eyes remained sharp and observant. Inside the showroom, the air was scented with expensive cologne and new leather, a stark contrast to the smell of wet asphalt outside. Marcus adjusted his silk tie, feeling a surge of power as he looked down at the woman on the pavement. To him, she was just another nameless soul lost in the machinery of the metropolis. He didn't see a human being. He saw an obstacle to his afternoon sales targets. "I won't tell you again," Marcus barked, stepping under the dry canopy of the entrance. "People like you bring down the property value just by standing here. Go find a shelter and stay away from my glass." He reached out again, this time with more force, intending to push her into the gutter. Amara raised her hand to shield herself, and that was when the world seemed to stop for Marcus. The ring was a masterpiece of goldsmithing, featuring a black diamond that seemed to swallow the light. It was the mark of the Cullen lineage, a family whose history stretched back centuries and whose influence moved global markets. Marcus had seen pictures of this specific relic in high-end auction catalogs, labeled as priceless and missing. His greed immediately warred with his confusion. "Where did you steal that?" Marcus whispered, his voice cracking with a mixture of fear and excitement. He reached for her hand, not to help her up, but to seize the treasure. Amara pulled back, her movements graceful despite her exhaustion. She stood tall, the rain dripping off her chin, and looked him directly in the eye. "It is not a theft to carry one's own name, Marcus," she said. Her voice was a rich, melodic contralto that carried the weight of authority. Marcus blinked, stunned that a woman he assumed was uneducated spoke with such poise. He stepped back, suddenly feeling small in his $3,000 suit. He quickly masked his insecurity with renewed aggression, waving over two burly security guards. "She's a thief," he shouted, pointing a trembling finger at Amara. "She's carrying stolen property from the Cullen estate. Secure her until the police arrive." The guards moved in, grabbing Amara's arms with unnecessary roughness. Amara didn't struggle. She knew that any resistance would only give them an excuse to hurt her. She looked at the ring on her finger, a symbol of a life she had been forced to flee when her family's empire was under threat. She had lived as a ghost for months, waiting for the right moment to reclaim her soul. Inside the showroom, Elena, the young secretary, watched the scene with a sinking heart. She had seen Marcus bully people before, but there was something different about this woman. Elena noticed the way the woman held her head high, even as the guards shook her. She felt a deep sense of injustice but feared the consequences of speaking out. Marcus was already on his phone, dialing the authorities and imagining the reward he might get for recovering the lost Colin diamond. He paced the showroom floor, ignoring the trail of water the guards had tracked in. He saw himself on the front page of the financial news, the hero who caught a high-profile criminal. "You're going to rot in a cell for this," Marcus hissed, leaning close to Amara's face. "A woman like you thinks she can just walk around with a queen's ransom? You should have sold it and run while you had the chance." Amara simply smiled, a small knowing curve of her lips that made Marcus's skin crawl. "You speak of things you don't understand," she replied quietly. "The value of this ring isn't in the stone, but in the blood that flows through the person wearing it." Marcus laughed, a harsh grating sound. He thought she was delusional, a broken woman clinging to a fantasy. Suddenly, the roar of high-performance engines drowned out the sound of the rain. A line of sleek, black-armored SUVs turned the corner, their headlights piercing through the gloom like the eyes of predators. They pulled up in a perfect formation right in front of the showroom, blocking the street. The security guards hesitated, their grip loosening on Amara's shoulders. Marcus stopped pacing, his eyes wide. These weren't police cars. These were the vehicles of a private security firm, so elite they only answered to a handful of people in the world. The doors of the lead vehicle opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a sharp black coat, and carried an umbrella with the air of a soldier. This was Silas, the man who had served the Colin family for 3 decades. He scanned the area with a clinical intensity until his eyes landed on Amara. Marcus, ever the opportunist, rushed toward the door. He assumed these men were here for the ring, perhaps sent by the insurance company. "You're just in time," he shouted, waving his arms. "I've caught the thief. She's right here. I've kept the diamond safe for you." Silas didn't even glance at Marcus. He walked straight toward Amara, his boots clicking rhythmically on the wet pavement. The guards, sensing a power far greater than their employers, stepped away from her immediately. Silas stopped 3 feet in front of Amara and closed his umbrella. Then, in front of the entire staff and the stunned Marcus, Silas bowed his head deeply. "The path has been cleared, Your Highness," he said, his voice echoing in the silent street. "The traitors have been dealt with, and your assets have been fully restored. The world is waiting for your return." Amara took a deep breath, the persona of the homeless wanderer falling away like a discarded cloak. She reached out and took the umbrella from Silas, stepping into the dry space he provided. "Thank you, Silas. It has been a long winter," she said, her voice now carrying the full resonance of her status. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face until he was as white as a sheet. He looked from Silas to Amara, his mouth hanging open. The homeless woman he had just insulted wasn't a thief. She was the head of the very conglomerate that owned the land his dealership sat on. "Wait, there must be a mistake," Marcus stammered, his voice high-pitched and desperate. I thought she was in danger. I was protecting the ring. I didn't know." He looked toward Elena, silently pleading for her to back up his lies, but she looked away. Amara turned to look at him, her eyes as cold as the rain. She walked back toward the glass doors she had been pushed away from just minutes ago. "You didn't see a woman in danger, Marcus. You saw a woman you thought was beneath you. You saw someone you thought you could hurt without consequence." She held up her hand, the gold ring gleaming under the showroom's lights. "My grandfather started his career as a driver for my great-grandmother. He worked hard, and he was treated with respect. He taught us that a person's character is revealed by how they treat those who can do nothing for them." Marcus began to sweat, despite the cold breeze. "Please, Princess Colin. I have a family. I have a business. I'll do anything to make it up to you. Take any car. Take them all." He gestured wildly at the millions of dollars worth of inventory behind him. Amara looked around the showroom, her gaze lingering on the logo of the company. "This business is built on the image of luxury and class. she said softly. But there is no class in cruelty. Silas, who owns the lease on this building? Silas checked a tablet held by one of his subordinates. Technically, the holding company is a subsidiary of your private equity group, madam. You are his landlord. A small, terrified whimper escaped Marcus's throat as he realized his entire life was now in her hands. Cancel the lease, Amara said, her tone as casual as if she were ordering tea. And notify the manufacturers that this dealership no longer represents the standards of the brand. Mr. Marcus has 30 minutes to vacate the premises before my security team locks the doors. You can't do that. Marcus cried out, tears starting to blur his vision. I've spent years building this. Amara didn't stop to listen. She began to walk toward the waiting motorcade, her stride confident and powerful. She had spent months in the cold. Now it was his turn. As she passed Elena, Amara paused. She saw the fear and the spark of integrity in the young woman's eyes. What is your name? She asked. The secretary stuttered out her name, barely able to believe she was being spoken to. Amara nodded slowly. Elena, you are the only one who didn't join in his mockery, Amara said. If you wish, my office will find a place for you in the corporate headquarters. We need people who remember their humanity, even when the boss forgets his. Elena nodded vigorously, a look of immense relief on her face. Amara stepped into the back of the lead SUV, the plush leather interior, a familiar comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. The door clicked shut, sealing out the noise of Marcus's frantic shouting and the sound of the rain. Silas sat in the front, giving the signal for the convoy to move. As the vehicles pulled away, Marcus stood alone in the rain, the very spot where Amara had been standing earlier. His expensive suit was ruined, and his keys no longer opened the doors to his future. He watched the red taillights disappear into the dark, knowing his empire had vanished in a heartbeat. The story of the Colin heir's return spread through the city like wildfire. It served as a chilling reminder to the elite that the people they pass on the street might have stories they can't imagine. Amara returned to her boardroom, but she never forgot the cold of the rain or the weight of the silence. She spent the rest of her life using her immense wealth to build shelters and systems that protected the vulnerable, ensuring that no one else would be treated the way Marcus had treated her. And as for the gold ring, she wore it every day, not as a symbol of power, but as a reminder of her resilience. Every time she looked at the black diamond, she remembered the man who saw only a beggar, and the moment he realized he was looking at a queen. It was a lesson in humility that she made sure was taught in every branch of her global empire, from the highest executive to the newest hire. Justice isn't always found in a courtroom. Sometimes it is found on a rainy street corner, hidden under an old coat and a heart of gold. Amara's journey from the shadows back to the throne became a legend, a story of how true royalty is carried in the soul, not just in the pocketbook. Thank you so much for watching this story to the end. It really goes to show that you should never judge a book by its cover, because you never know who you might be talking to. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more stories of justice and hidden identities, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a big thumbs up. It helps us out a lot, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.